What might be the doubling time of technological advances in modern society? And how would you measure it? I don't know and I don't know, but I'm happy to try. Let's look at 30-year runs of the industrialized world since 1870, with emphasis on the United States, and compare life at the beginning to life at the end of each interval. How have exploration and discovery, the drivers of science, shaped our lives? From 1870 to 1900, there were great advances in transportation. Steamships crossed the oceans in record times. In 1869, the last golden spike is hammered, completing the 2,000-mile transcontinental railroad across the United States. This enables decades of mobility and expansion for the population. In 1883, the legendary Orient Express, among many rail routes on the continent, begins its 2,800-kilometer journey east from Paris. Rail travel rendered transportation by stagecoach obsolete along many routes. Also, in the 1880s, German engineer Carl Benz improves on the internal combustion engine and births the first practical automobile. English inventor John Kemp Starley perfects the velocipede. Credit him for the now familiar safety bicycle, which uses two wheels of equal size and a chain connecting the rear wheel to the pedals. And over that time, powered balloons that enable transportation through the air are all the rage. Daily life in 1900 would be unrecognizable to anyone transported from the year 1870. Time to look at published predictions in 1900 for the year 2000. That's what people do when a new century begins. With a clever subtitle, The History of the Future, the website paleofuture.com specializes in just that. Rampant among predictions, such as what appeared in the publications Punch, The Atlantic Monthly, and Collier's, are simple linear extrapolations of what was happening in 1900. They see the promise of electric lighting, but imagine it only for special occasions. They love airship travel and imagine a future where everyone moves around via their own private balloon, including Santa. Because who needs magic reindeer when you have blimps? Again, humans are linear thinkers, so you can't blame any of them for these quaint imaginings of their future. The Brooklyn Daily Eagle's last Sunday newspaper of the 19th century included a 16-page supplement of articles and illustrations titled, "Things Will Be So Different 100 Years Hence." The contributors, business and military leaders, pastors, politicians, and other experts in their fields, opined on what housework, poverty, religion, sanitation, and war would be like in the year 2000. They enthused about the potential of electricity and the automobile. And most of the writers portray a future rich with fanciful extensions of the day's technologies. Although one futurist could not see the future at all. George H. Daniels, who worked for the New York Central and Hudson River Railroad, peered into his own crystal ball and predicted, "It is scarcely possible that the 20th century will witness improvements in transportation that will be as great as were those of the 19th century." Written just 3 years before the invention of flight, that's gotta be the most boneheaded prediction ever made. Rather than simply underpredict the future like everybody else, he actively denies a future of innovations in his own field. Elsewhere in his article, Daniels envisions affordable global tourism and the diffusion of white bread to China and Japan. Yet he simply can't imagine what might replace steam as the power source for ground transportation, let alone heavier-than-air vehicles flying through the air. Even though he stood on the doorstep of the 20th century, this manager of the world's biggest commuter rail system could not see beyond the automobile, the locomotive, and the steamship. Yet another victim of linear thinking, unwittingly embedded in exponential growth. Between 1900 and 1930, the existence of atoms is confirmed. Powered aeroplanes are invented, and the range of flight extends from the 120-foot, 36-meter distance flown in 1903 by the Wright brothers in the original Wright Flyer to a 5,218-mile closed-circuit trip in 1930, logged by the Italian aviators Major Umberto Maddalena and Lieutenant Fausto Ciccone. Back on the ground, we learned to exploit radio waves as a fundamental source of information and entertainment. Urban transportation shifts almost entirely from a horse-drawn economy, the backbone of civilization for thousands of years, to an automobile economy in which you can't give away a horse. This period also sees a world war in which planes are used in combat for the first time. Orville Wright, writing from Dayton, Ohio, laments this fact in a letter dated December 19, 1918, to Allen R. Hawley, president of the Aero Club of America in New York City. Many thanks for your telegram remembering the 15th anniversary of our first flight at Kitty Hawk. Although Wilbur, as well as myself, would have preferred to see the aeroplane developed along more peaceful lines, yet I believe that its use in this great war will give encouragement for its use in other ways. Meanwhile, cities are electrified. To read at night, no longer do you have to burn wax, whale oil, or any other source of flame. And over this time, cinema, silent and in black and white, becomes a leading source of entertainment. Daily life in 1930 would be unrecognizable to anyone transported from the year 1900. From 1930 to 1960, we go from airplanes flying at speeds of a few hundred miles per hour to breaking the sound barrier in 1947 to the dawn of the space age, inspired in part by ballistic rockets developed as wartime weapons. In 1957, the Soviet Union launches Sputnik, Earth's first artificial satellite, traveling at 17,500 miles per hour in low Earth orbit. In 1958, the world's first commercial jet airplane, the Boeing 707, flown by Pan American Airways, enjoys a wingspan wider than the distance flown by the Wright brothers' first flight in 1903. This period also sees the invention of the laser. Nuclear weapons from their invention in 1945 to 1960, a mere 15 years, increase in destructive power by nearly a factor of 4,000, accompanied by missile technologies to deliver their destructive power anywhere on Earth's surface within 45 minutes. We see the rise of television as a potent source of instant information and entertainment, as well as the further rise of cinema, now in color and with sound. Daily life in 1960 would be unrecognizable to anyone transported from the year 1930. From 1960 to 1990, a Cold War nuclear arms race between the United States and the Soviet Union threatens the survival of civilization. Though begun in the 1950s, the U.S. stockpile of nuclear warheads peaks in the 1960s, with the Soviets' stockpile peaking in the 1980s. The Berlin Wall, erected in 1961, becomes the greatest symbol of Winston Churchill's Iron Curtain, separating Eastern from Western Europe. Yet it's dismantled by 1989 as peace breaks out in Europe. The commercialization of the transistor allows consumer electronics to miniaturize, transforming audiovisual equipment from heavy floor-mounted living room furniture to what you carry in your pocket. The laser goes from a specialized piece of laboratory equipment costing tens of thousands of dollars to a $5.99 laser pointer impulse buy at the checkout line of Walmart. Women enter the workforce in large numbers, especially in professional fields traditionally held by men. Sunday newspapers rebrand their women's section as the home section. The modern gay rights movement catapults to mainstream attention via the AIDS epidemic that sweeps the world. Not until 1987 is homosexuality removed entirely from the formal list of mental disorders compiled by the American Psychiatric Association. Computers go from being expensive room-size special-purpose machines used exclusively by the military and by scientists to desktop necessities. The personal computer, introduced in the 1980s by IBM and Apple Computer, permanently transforms the daily habits of how people work and play. Hospitals in the 1980s see widespread use of MRIs as a potent tool in the medical professional's arsenal when diagnosing the condition of the human body without first cutting you open. In Back to the Future Part 2, 1989, the filmmakers imagine life in the distant future of 2015. Flying cars are there. Everybody wants flying cars in the future. But in one scene, Marty McFly, the main character, angers his boss during a video call at home and gets fired from his job. This bad news is express delivered in that moment via fax. Not across just one fax machine. His futuristic residence has 3. Because if everyone owns one fax machine in 1989, then in the future, 26 years later, everyone would surely own 3 of them. In all fairness to Hollywood, it wasn't just the movies. In 1993, AT&T launched an ad campaign about the future, taglined, "You will." It got most stuff right, but included a TV spot with a person in a reclined chair on a seashore, scribbling on a tablet, about to do something I've never wanted to do, have never needed to do, have never done, nor ever will do. The voiceover boasts, "Have you ever sent someone a fax? From the beach? You will, and the company that'll bring it to you, AT&T. Oh, just one more thing. Between 1960 and 1990, we build the most powerful rocket ever to launch, and with it journey 9 times to the moon. While there, we orbit, land, walk, skip, golf, and drive 3 electric buggies across its barren, dusty terrain. We also develop a reusable space shuttle and allocate funds to build an international orbiting space station the size of a football field. Sorry, that's 3 more things. Daily life in 1990 would be unrecognizable to anyone transported from the year 1960. From 1990 to 2020, we map the human genome. Computers become portable, small enough to carry in a backpack. The World Wide Web, invented in 1989 by British computer scientist Tim Berners-Lee at the European Organization for Nuclear Research, CERN, in Switzerland, becomes ubiquitous in the 1990s. By 2000, searchable websites and e-commerce are commonplace, and everyone with a computer and access to the internet obtains an email address. Early in this period, mobile phones had become standard for anyone leaving the house, but beginning in 2007, are rapidly replaced by the pocket-sized smartphone, granting full access to music, media, and the internet. Smartphones further host countless utilities that enhance everyday life, including a camera that shoots high-quality photos and video. Oh, and it also makes phone calls. The smartphone may be the single greatest invention in the history of inventions. In 2020, there are 3 billion of them in a world of 8 billion people. Before 2007, there were 0. Show a smartphone to anyone in 1990, and they may just resurrect witch-burning laws to eradicate your magic. In 1996, the Global Positioning System, a navigation tool created exclusively by the U.S. military for national security, is formally open to commercial interests. That's when President Bill Clinton issues a policy directive declaring GPS to be a dual-use system. Navigation tools rapidly commercialize, for everything from tracking packages to hailing a car service to selecting a mutually interested sex partner within 4 blocks of your location. In the 2000s, social media platforms changed the communication landscape of family, friends, and especially politics. You can now drive across the United States in an electric car, charging at any of 40,000 power stations along the way, all while we glimpse the dawn of electric self-driving cars. A few more things. Once ubiquitous among storefronts, video stores are gone. CDs and DVDs come and go. Computers are now smart enough to beat all humans in the board games chess and Go, the TV game show Jeopardy, and damn near everything else that requires brain power. And this sentence, with clear and present meaning in 2020, Google it to see if there's a smartphone selfie video posted to YouTube in 4K that went viral, is laden with mysterious nouns and verbs with no meaning to anyone in 1990. You know you're living in the future when you can board a 100-ton pressurized aluminum tube with wings, fly smoothly in a cushioned chair at 500 miles per hour, 31,000 feet above Earth's surface, and while crossing the continent, get served a pasta dinner and a mixed drink by someone whose job, in part, is to make you comfortable. And for most of the trip, you surf the internet or watch any one of 100 movies, only to land safely and smoothly a few hours later and complain that the marinara sauce was not to your liking. Today swarms with rampant predictions for what we can expect mid-century, the year 2050. If things continue as they have for the past 150 years, you can guarantee every one of them will fail. Maybe that's good, because lately, most predictions are bleak. Many foretell a climate change apocalypse. Some fear a virus catastrophe with lethality far greater than the 6 million deaths wrought by the COVID-19 pandemic of 2020. Others fear that AI, artificial intelligence, will escape its virtual box and ultimately become our overlord. On TV and in the movies, the zombie apocalypse feels real. A fan once asked 20th century sci-fi novelist Ray Bradbury why he imagined bleak futures. Is civilization doomed? He replied, "No, I write about these futures so that you know to avoid them." So when someone hints or declares they have any clue what the state of the world will be in the year 2050, 30 years from 2020, I reflect on our parade of 30-year windows on human affairs. There's nothing linear about any of it. The river of discoveries in the natural world grows exponentially, fed by emergent tributaries of insight and knowledge, guaranteeing to embarrass any futurist. But that won't stop me from trying. With the caveat that when I first saw the Star Trek TV series in the 1960s, I fully embraced a future of warp drives, photon torpedoes, phasers, transporters, and aliens. But I remembered thinking, no, a door can't possibly know to open for you when you approach it. So, time to make a future fool of myself. By the year 2050, neuroscience and our understanding of the human mind will become so advanced that mental illness will be cured, leaving psychologists and psychiatrists without jobs. In a shift that echoes the rapid conversion from horses to automobiles in the early 20th century, self-driving electric vehicles will fully replace all cars and trucks on the road. If you want to be nostalgic with your fancy combustion engine sports car, you can drive on specially designed car tracks, akin to horse riding stables of today. The human space program will fully transition to a space industry, supported not by tax dollars, but by tourism and anything else people dream of doing in space. We develop a perfect antiviral serum and cure cancer. Medicines will tailor to your DNA, leaving no adverse side effects. We will resist the urge to merge the circuitry of computers with the circuitry of our brains. We will learn to regrow lost limbs and failing organs, bringing us up to the level of other regenerating animals on Earth, like salamanders, starfish, and lobsters. Instead of becoming our overlord and enslaving us all, artificial intelligence will be just another helpful feature of the tech infrastructures that serve our daily lives. Yes, we live in special times, only because it's all special. What's driving it all? When we think of civilization, we commonly reflect on how engineering and technology has shaped our lives. Dig a little deeper and find ongoing scientific discovery that enables and empowers this progress. 19th century advances in thermodynamics gave engineers the necessary understanding of energy and heat to design and perfect their engines. Around the same time, discoveries in electromagnetism informed all thoughts about how to create and distribute electrical power. Einstein's theory of relativity, published in 1905 and 1915, would ultimately provide the precision that GPS satellite timing requires, among countless other extraordinary revelations about our universe, from how the sun makes energy to the Big Bang itself. Quantum mechanics in the 1920s became the landscape on which all modern electronics would be based, especially the creation, storage, and retrieval of digital information. Material science, an ongoing enterprise that explores new alloys, composites, and the texture of surfaces, has transformed everything we see, touch, wear, and use in our industrialized world. Each of these areas represents entire branches of the physical sciences, with discoveries reported by scientists in research papers that once appeared in journals on shelves, but now display on the internet you didn't have in 1990. Yes, we live in special times, only because it's all special. Which brings to mind this oft-cited, though short-sighted verse from Ecclesiastes, written thousands of years ago. The thing that hath been is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun. You can only conceive this sentence in a pre-scientific era, before exponentials had even been imagined, and before anybody emerged from the dark of the cave to explore. Today, it's all new under the sun, and moon, and stars. The only thing about it that doesn't change is the exponential rate of change itself.